money is not a god to me. It's not. To a lot of people, money is a god. If you believe in what you do and you build, good things will happen to you. Whether you have $25 million or you got $5, good things will happen. When I was younger, I didn't give a about sunsets. Sunsets are beautiful today. I think probably for me, because coming from an alcoholic family, being successful was the most important thing to me. I had to prove something to my dad.
On today's episode of Beyond the Bottom Line, we're joined by Bill Ruark, one of Northeastern Pennsylvania's most respected business leaders and philanthropists. From Mashop and Stone to Stonehenge Golf Course and many other ventures, Bill has built extraordinary success rooted in hard work, smart decisions, and family values. He's also the founder of the Ruark Foundation and a driving force behind restoring healthcare access in Wyoming County through the Wyoming County Healthcare Center. This is a candid conversation about family, community, and business. Bill is an example of what it means to intentionally build a lasting legacy.
I've had the pleasure to get to know you a lot more in the last handful of years since that interview, really. Maria, you guys have worked together in Marley's Mission, and you're just involved in a lot of things. But assuming there's someone watching that doesn't really know Bill Ruark and some of the things you do, why don't you just don't take the full hour to run down all the things you're involved in, but just give a quick elevator pitch.
You mean involved on the donation side or on the?
Let's talk about your business right now. Business.
Okay,
side.
Well, I'll go back many years ago. When I graduated school, we had two businesses. We had Shop and Stone, and then we started a company called Penn's Best. And I can't remember, 1994, I think my dad sold Penn's Best, and I bought the stone business from my mom because they were divorced. So we had Shop and Stone. We grew Shop and Stone from 5 employees to probably 200 today. And we formed other companies. Once the gas got here in 2008, we formed companies called Alderdice, which does construction work for the gas companies. And then we have SGFS, that hauls water for the gas companies. We bought a golf course called Stonehenge Golf Course. And we do a multitude of other things, within our own businesses. We crush stone, and that's different businesses. Every business has to be a profit center as far as we're concerned. So when someone says, well, you're going to lose money here, well, why are we losing money there? So, and then fortunately for me, when I signed my gas leases, they were decent gas leases, and I managed my money right. So we just kept buying properties. We bought properties and we did other things, and some of the properties had houses on them, and we built some houses. And that brings me to another thing, which I think I told Bob before. We had another company in Moosic called Signature Building Systems in Moosic, which does modular homes. So we got involved in that 12 years ago, and we're still doing that. It was a tough year this year with the economy and interest rates and everything. And fortunately for me, I do a lot of charity work. I'm involved with Marley's Mission. We have another foundation called the Ruark Foundation. And then I do a lot of work with the Soup Kitchen in Tunkhannock. And we also have a hospital, which we bought 2 years ago. My wife, Karen, always jokes. She goes, you really can buy all the property you want, but you buy the biggest building in Wyoming County. So my daughter and Deb, my daughter runs the hospital, and we're doing very well there. It's a work in progress. And Debbie Johnson works with Lindsay, and like I said, they're doing a terrific job.
So this is like a little off the beaten path, but one of the things that one of my newest stories I have about you, which you don't know this yet, is Bill and his family have done a ton of heavy lifting to get this hospital project, get traction, get it in motion, which they've done an awesome job with. Stonehouse lucky to be one of the many local companies that contribute, right? Just this fall, like a month or two ago.
About a month ago.
They had a appreciation dinner over at Stonehenge at the Pavilion. Great thing. Greenlee's catered. It was a wonderful event. A couple hundred people there maybe. And we're all sitting there, and Lindsay got up and welcomed everyone and started to speak. I happened to be standing by Bill at the back of the room. To me, this is you to a T. I didn't realize it, but we're standing there, and I made some little joke about, hey, do you want me to speak or something? And Bill goes, hey, how's your son doing? Because he knows that Aiden just started as a financial advisor at Stonehouse. He goes, how's your son doing? He goes, you making out okay? How's it going? I was like, oh, good. We didn't talk much about it, right? But I didn't want to bother to interrupt the speech. And I went back to my table, and then Lindsay introduces Bill, her dad, and he comes up and gives the speech. And I thought, this guy was 60 seconds from giving a speech to 200 people who've donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to his personal project. And he wanted to know how my kid was.
Aww.
I think that was pretty cool.
Well, it's very important. And speaking about that dinner, it was, Don Sherwood, spoke, and he said, we should be honoring you. We don't want to be honored. I don't like recognition. It's the right thing to do. I've been very fortunate. I used to think it was luck. It's not luck. It's hard work. It's hard work, dedication to get where you got. And guys like Stonehouse, we appreciate the money they gave us because we can't run that hospital without good people, man. So we're grateful for that. It was just a little appreciation. Plus, and I think I told Bob this, we didn't use the hospital money to pay for that dinner. We used my money to pay for the dinner because I have a trouble when you donate money to someone and they use the money you donate to do stuff like that. I'm
Yeah,
a real
I know.
principle guy when it comes to certain things.
Yeah. So how did you learn to work hard?
I had to learn to work hard. I was raised that way.
Yeah.
You just had to work hard. You know, in my house, you just, you know, when I was 12 years old, I was mowing lawn, raking leaves. In fact, my mother lives in Clarendon Acres, and I always joke with her. I said, any kids ever come to this house and want to shovel your sidewalk? She goes, Billy, I never see a kid. I always had money in my pocket. Then I worked in the grocery store and was shopping for 3 years until I graduated, and then I worked in the family business. And we just worked hard. And, you know, with my dad, we had good times and bad times with family businesses, but there was no options. You just did what you had to do.
Yeah.
I've never asked you this question, but what's the, like, you seem to gel real well with your son, Ryan, and with your daughter, Lindsay, and helping and working alongside them, running different things. How is it different with your relationship with them
Oh, that's
compared
really
with
simple,
your
Bob.
dad?
My dad was a good man. Unfortunately, my dad was an alcoholic. So the best times we had, and I was an alcoholic too, we drank, you know, you got along better. But dad was great to probably do something in the day, and then he'd come back in the dispatch office and he'd say, Bill, why'd you do this and that? And I was in my 20s then, and I'd see red and I'm thinking, you're like a second string quarterback. You're sitting there. So I made up my mind when Ryan graduated and Lindsay, I said, I'm never going to do that with my kids, and I don't. You know, he'll say something to me, and Ryan's really, really good, and they're both great. I'm very blessed to have them and ask my opinion on something, or they don't ask, and I'm fine with it. If I don't like something, I'll say, I probably would have done it this way, but very rarely do I have to do that. So that answers the question. Fortunately for me, a year and a half before my dad died, we had a great relationship, which is terrific. So,
That's wonderful.
yeah.
You seem really even keeled. All of these things that you're talking about, all of these businesses going on, and all of your family members that are involved. How do you stay calm?
Well, you have to. When I was younger, like you, Karen's been a good help to me because she told me one day, I hired a guy and she goes, you know, Bill, the only person that hurts is right here in your chest. And she was right. One day I was down at Sword and Stone and I threw my phone because I was so frustrated. I think you need to grow up. But as you get older, you have crises, you work them out. They're not the end of the world. I look at it like this. Nobody got hurt today. Nobody died. So yes, you know, we might've lost a little money here, but we can make it back tomorrow. And, you know, you look at employees, I look at employees as if they were smart, they wouldn't be working for me. So I have to treat them right. Yes, sometimes they're a pain in my butt, but I look at it, this guy's safe, especially truck drivers. This guy's safe. He's really, really high maintenance, but he's safe and he does this job right. Just walk away from the conversation and you learn. And you have to stay even with it, you know.
Yeah.
Like someone said last night, the Festival Lights, I can't believe you're here. Well, I like it because everybody's happy. I can tell about this.
Good point, yeah.
It's the only thing I've ever done in my life where everybody's happy for 38 days.
Yeah.
You know, they're happy.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
so-
great.
Unless there's high winds and thunderstorms.
That's right. Yeah, we've had them too.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Going back to something I wrote down, you said originally to Maria's question, you said, I managed my money right in various points throughout
Yes.
the time. What does that mean to you? Like,
Well, what it means is when I got in business, when I left my dad, I was making really good money for a young guy. And then I had my shop in Stone, I had employees. And in the stone business, it's seasonal. So basically, you know you're going to make money April, May, June, April through, let's say back then through October. It's like a crop, a guy harvesting crops. So you have to save your money you make. I think one time, 6 months, I didn't take a paycheck. And then maybe another year, 6 months, I took a paycheck, but never put that paycheck in bank. So I remember the bad times, 2 years up, 1 year down, 1 year up, 1 year down. Then we had an 8-year run and we saved our money. And that's what I taught my son. Because Ryan's it's going to be his business. I said, you got to save your money because you're going to have rainy days and they're bad days. So that's my success. And, you know, and the gas was good to me and I managed my money right in the gas. And we reinvest though, you know, instead of putting all that money in bank, we buy properties, we do things that hopefully make sense. Not all of them have made sense. I've had a couple that didn't make sense, but
I was going to say, how do you decide what you want to do? And
it's a gamble.
Yeah.
You know, you just look at it. You just got to say, well, I'm going to try this, see if it works. Like the car wash in the shop. We spent a lot of money putting that up, but we knew that it should be all right. And we just bought a building down in Tunkhannock across from Sherwood. We're going to put a car wash there. So I'm sure it'll be all right. And Ryan handles that. He says, he told me when we built the car wash in the shop and he goes, I said, you need 1 automated bay and 3 hand bays. He goes, no, Dad, we need 2 automated bays and 2 hand bays. And he was right.
Wow.
So, you know,
Oh,
so I
nice.
stay out of
Chalk
it. You know, I'm
that
just
up.
with my kids, I'm just life support. You know, Lindsay, the same with the hospital. She does a great job.
Life support.
I'm
Well,
just
I'm
life
sure
support.
They've learned a lot from you just being in your
Oh, yeah.
proximity and watching you make decisions all those years.
And they do. And they listen. They'll tell me something. She'll say, Dad, you just got to stay calm because, especially when the politicians in this county have been good to us and in the state. So because I never dealt with politics, and Lindsay knew that. So she goes, you got to stay calm, Dad, because I'm a common sense person. And some of the stuff we do in politics is not common sense. It should be simple, but it's not simple.
So would you say it's safe to say politics operates completely different than
Oh,
commerce?
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I always tell people, profit business or nonprofit, you have to sustain. If you don't make a profit even in a nonprofit business, you got a serious issue. You got to figure it out. Fortunately for me, I had some money. I could take care of that nonprofit and feed it until good people like you came along with the Neighborhood Assistance Program. But yeah, and government, and unfortunately government, I think we put a lot of good people down there. The problem is sometimes they forget or they trade off for what they don't believe in to get what they do believe in. I have a problem with that. Like I said, I'm a principled person to the end. So
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to see a Senator Ruark coming up?
no politics in my life.
Oh, that's great. What's got you most pumped up today? Like we were talking a little bit off camera. I don't know if you want to go on that topic, but there's always something that's kind of at the front of your desk, right?
Well, we got on the business side, everything seems to be good. I mean, right now, this time of year, Festival Lights is terrific. I'm excited about the hospital because I think we're building something. And to answer your question earlier, Maria, I'm a firm believer you build it, they'll come. I remember the first year of Festival Lights, we must have had that night. The first night we had 28 cars. I think the first week we might have had 100 cars. And Karen, cried. I said, don't worry about it. People are going to come. If you do it right, service people, take care of them, and smile, you're going to have a good business. That's how I live my life. I mean, and today pumped up a little bit at a meeting this morning. We're talking about EMS in this county, and EMS currently is a train wreck. And unfortunately, the people in this county don't realize if it's not there, they have a problem, but it takes money to run the problem. And we come up with a good mousetrap to take care of the money. If you donate the money, we have a central hub that takes care of the money and divvies it out to the people that need it. The problem is finding $500,000 a year because it takes $500,000 a year to run this machine because the volunteers are gone. Now they're all getting paid. So
Yeah, it's not just Northeast PA.
it's everywhere.
It's all over.
It's all over the country.
And I'm keep hearing about it. I'm hoping and waiting that someone solves this mousetrap or solves this mystery and designs a new mousetrap or whatever you
Yeah.
want to use. But I haven't found it yet.
No, we're going to work on it. We're going
I
to see
know.
if we can come up with it.
You're the Hulk, right? Whenever you have a big project,
We
you
didn't need
a
that
Hulk,
problem.
somebody
We
get
have
in
enough things, but again, I really like the county I was raised in, and it's easy to give back. And I don't need to you don't need to be recognized for giving back. I have a lot of friends, and they're friends. They have some money they give back. They got to be recognized. I don't need to be recognized for what I do. Just do the right thing. Good things will follow.
How do you decide? This is what my head is like. There's so many things around you, right? All of the businesses that you're in, all of the people that you're working with. I'm sure you get asked every day for something, advice, a donation, anything. How do you decide where to focus your energy and where to give?
Well, when I was younger, I tried to help people out with budgets. I got myself in trouble one day, and I won't go into that story, but I figured, so I told the guy, your wife probably needs to go to work. He quit me because his wife was pissed off at me. So now I just had a driver the other day, great driver. He said, Bill, I want to buy a truck. I said, I'm going to bet you $100,000 right now that your W-2 is going to make you more money the last 2 years than you're going to make owning your own truck. Yes, you'll handle $5,000 a week, but you got to pay expenses. I spent 15 minutes with him. Whatever he decides to do, he's a great guy. I'll work with him. So I don't give a lot of energy. On the nonprofit side, we get hit a lot. First thing I do, and you might laugh at this, is I'll look at how much is that director making? Are they making $800,000 a year? They don't need my money. Well, I have to believe in it. I got to believe in it. Like Marley's Mission, I believe in what they're doing. I believe in the soup kitchen. Now we have our own hospital. I believe in what we're doing, and I got to believe in it. And we do a lot of donations. We do it through the schools. This time of year, we help Tunkhannock School. We help Elk Lake for Christmas. It's just what we do. But you're right. We get a lot of them. A lot of them go in the garbage can because I don't believe in what they're doing. Baseball teams, soccer teams, basketball teams, you try to help where you can help. But you can't help everybody because some of them need it worse. But it's hard.
We started the Tiger Fund together.
Yes.
Yep.
And you're working with Elk Lake
Elk
on
Lake
a
on
similar
the
fund.
left.
And
Yep.
I remember, I think I was the one that talked to you and said, hey, we're going to have a meeting. Are you interested in? And a bunch of heavy hitters, whatever you want to call it, successful people that actually cared about the community were around the table. And we had a couple meetings. And next thing you know, we raised some money. And we had our first application from a teacher saying, hey, I'd like to have this money to do, I forget what it was, like something for the students, robotics or something.
Yes. Yep.
And we kind of all looked at each other like, what do we do? Not quite that bad. But I remember Bill goes, a couple months ago, Bob Brown asked me to be on this thing so we could raise money and do things for the kids. So we're not here just to raise money. Let's sign the check. Let's get that
Yeah.
money where it needs to go and get that done. And then that just started. It's been a great
It's been a great
experience.
program.
It has
Terrific
been.
program.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
But you need people. I like that you held my feet to the fire on that one. Let's get going.
Well, and
man.
also Bob said when he recruited me, and I still don't hold this against him no more because I still love the guy. He says, this is going to help Tunkhannock and Elk Lake. And I'm thinking, where the hell are you helping Elk Lake? So in the meantime, we did the Tunkhannock Fund. Then we started a fund through, and he's got people on it too. And it's working in Elk Lake too. So every school, as taxpayers, we're funding all this, but some things don't get funded. So I think it's a great program.
Yeah. I think we set a nice, we weren't the first to do it, but I think we were doing it a little bit of a unique way, and other districts can copy it now.
Exactly.
So if they don't have anything like that, so
That'd
it's
be
nice.
great.
Yeah, it's added some nice extra perks for the kids, and it's hard not to get behind something that's good for the kids.
Yep.
So I'm glad I gave you a little idea of what I want to talk about or when we chatted, but something that changed that happened to you in your life that maybe really shaped the way you do business, or the way you have some policies and procedures in your mind of how you work and handle situations, right? What's like a good story that you've given me a lot
Well, I
of
think the
good
way you put
stories.
it, when you sent it out to me, was a pivotal moment in my life.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I came out of school young and dumb. And I think the first year I was 17 years old, and my dad said to me at the end of the year, he goes, Bill, we had a good year. He goes, we got to lose this money. I said, what are you talking about? We got to lose this money. He said, well, and he was laughing by then. He said, well, you got to pay tax on what your profit is. I said, well, what do you mean we got to lose? We got to buy equipment, or we got to do bonuses, but I said, what if we have a bad year next year? He goes, Bill, the government doesn't care about that. So a light bulb went off that day, and I started to learn finance too on my own. I worked with accountants, and I worked with, you look at a balance sheet and assets. And that was really a big moment for me, because I'm thinking, we just worked hard this year, a lot of sweat and equity, and government's going to take all of our money at 35%. I said, Dad, this isn't right. He goes, well, if you can change it, you're going to be a great man. So, and he was tough on me. You had a set of standards you had to follow, and I followed him, and we worked hard. We partied hard. And I learned from that. I thought, you know what? I want to change my life. I want a better life. And so that was one of the big moments in my life.
Yeah. Do you think when you had that moment, do you think the way you defined being successful when you were in your late 20s, maybe, compared to where you are today,
Well,
late 30s?
it's really simple. I was just thinking about this in the last
You
couple of
didn't
years.
get
I heard it.
Money is not a god to me. It's not. To a lot of people, money is a god. If you believe in what you do and you build good things will happen to you. Whether you have $25 million or you got $5, good things will happen. When I was younger, I didn't give a shit about sunsets. Sunsets are beautiful today. Seriously. I mean, I was just, I thought about that here 2 years ago, thinking, man, I really didn't pay attention to sunsets. So good things will follow you. But I think what I notice, even around here, is, and again, a lot of my friends, is just that money is a real big god to them. It's not to me. Success, I think probably for me, because coming from an alcoholic family, being successful was the most important thing to me. I had to prove something to my dad that, as hard as he beat me up, and I used to tell him, why don't you hit me instead of browbeat me? So I learned my lesson then that, I want to make this work, and I don't really need you. I gave him 6 months notice when I left him to go in the stone business, and I had enough of corporate America. Plus I just wanted to try something on my own. And that's the way I lead my life today. And I'm lucky. I got great kids. I got a great wife. I got five grandchildren who are terrific. So we all got principles.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What were you doing in corporate America?
Well, I was dealing with companies like Procter & Gamble. So we were trucking. I mean, we used to load, when I left Penn's Best, we were loading 100 loads a day out of Procter & Gamble. And, it was great for me, because I see new managers come in, and you see these fresh people coming out of college with great ideas. 2 years are here, 2 years are gone. You got to train a new one, or tell them how you think. And I used to go to meetings in Cincinnati, be patting you on the back how good your service was, but then they'd slide the other hand in your pocket and take out so much money, because that's the way it was. We were doing bids all the time. And I asked Dad, I said, why are they beating us up for 2 cents a mile? He goes, well, think how many miles they run a day. So, it was all reality check. It was a really good experience for me. I learned a lot. And the gas companies, the same way. I mean, the gas companies, I made a lot of friends in the gas industry, but they're brutal. So I got out of one corporation, got in the stone business, and then we developed more. So we're still dealing with corporate America, but it's on a different level.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's on our terms. If it doesn't make sense, we're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So
That's something I wanted to ask you. So when you look at Mashop and Stone, 20 years ago, there were, and probably still are, a good number of stone businesses out there, real tiny, mid-size, and bigger. What took Mashop and Stone? Like, what was the difference maker for you guys?
When you
made
build
get
something,
there?
you got to make a decision whether you're going to sell it or merge or do something. So the first thing we did was in 2012, we bought Scranton Materials, which is down in Newton Ransom Boulevard, just off of Kaiser Avenue. And it's a quarry, and we sell their stone plus we sell our stone. And then 3 years ago, we bought another company over in Susquehanna called Endless Mountain Stone. They were one of our competitors. We bought them. We looked at it really hard. In fact, Ryan didn't want to buy them. And then we looked at all the quarries, said, these are really good quarries. Let's go for it. So we did. So to answer your question, Bob, you either have to stay where you are or you got to grow. The unfortunate part about that is when you're big, everybody's attacking you. Facebook, internet. I mean, everybody can sell stone on the internet today, Facebook. So
Mhm.
I might be selling something for $8 a square foot. They're selling it for $7.25 because I got more overhead and I know my costs better. So I explained that to Ryan here a year ago because he was really frustrated. I said, when you're the biggest, buddy, they're going to attack you. So we just do the best we can do. We treat our customers good. We're very loyal to our customers. A lot of our customers are really good friends of ours. So hopefully it shakes out. This year it did shake out, and I was really worried about it. But so to answer your question, you gotta keep forging along.
When do you learn how to say, put this thing down?
Well, it's really
Not the stone business, but have you had
Yeah.
fails where, maybe not a business, but maybe something you tried in the larger business that you're like, hey, we got to,
oh yeah, you do that in the stone business. I mean, you might go out and strip a quarry, which means you're taking the overburden off a quarry, and you just spent 100 grand thinking that that rock was down there, and you just walk away and cry and say, well, that was a life's lesson. Because I always said the good Lord put it in the ground, never left a blueprint how to get it out, or what's there.
yeah,
A
that'd be a
guy, a
good
guy just
t-shirt.
sent me an email yesterday and said, well, that quarry should produce $3 million. I said, yeah, you're probably right, but I can't take that to a banker on what you just told me. A banker's not going to loan me money on speculation. So yeah, you have failures. You definitely have failures.
Do you have equipment for like LiDAR stuff that you can see?
No,
It's all based
it's all
on,
right in the eyes.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. I would
Wow.
imagine an adjacent property would be,
And you can tell by one property
yeah.
going to the next. Yeah.
Yeah.
You usually know where they are.
Well, do you have any t-shirts that say crying in the quarry?
No, I haven't done that yet. We've had more successes recently than we had failures. That's always a good sign.
What about scaling? I have seen Mashop and Stone just methodically get bigger. And so, is there any secret to that? Where do you feel that there's a point where it's hard to stay the small guy and you do need to scale if you want?
Well, I think in this economy, we're okay where we are because from 2010 to probably 2018, it was good. Then we had maybe a year that was off. And then during COVID, things were crazy. People are just buying because they weren't traveling. So they're putting money in their backyards. And I have this conversation with Ryan a lot because I'm getting older, as you both know. I told him, I said, if you ever decide you want to sell this, we can do this. If you got to make up your mind this is what you want to do. Now, fortunately for him, he's got 3 boys coming up, and I think a couple of them probably will stay in the business, which I'm all for that. So, because you have days where you think, man, this is, we got government, we got workman's comp, we got insurance, we got trucks we used to pay 200 grand for, now they're 260 grand. So there's just a lot of things. So to me, and not to get into politics, when they say inflation is 3%, I don't see that. I see it in my business, about 15%.
So I'm going to have to adjust my numbers.
That's right.
Well, you're out there doing budgets for people practicing financial planning without a license, Bill. I didn't know that for all these years. I think that's pretty neat, though, your willingness to sit down with friends or employees that are just
Mhm.
looking for. I've had people come to me that have seen maybe a video you've done here or just know you, and yeah, Bill talked to me in like the 50-30-20 rule and all that stuff, and I was like, what's he doing? Going around telling people that.
You try to tell them, but I don't take it personal anymore. If they want my advice, I'll give it to them, but I really don't offer it because you can hurt some feelings. And
Yeah.
budgets are really simple. You just got to live by them. I mean, the way I was raised, Dad said you got to have to have a car payment, you have to have a house. If you want to buy a toy, you better pay cash. And I agree with that. I still live by that theory.
One of the things I think is interesting from the outside looking in at you and your family, I would say, is you're saying money is not everything to me. It's not a God or anything like that. It is important when you don't have much.
Mhm.
And it's not that it's a priority over your family or anything, but it's a means to secure stability and comfort and a little bit of peace for your family. And so what I think is interesting is as you've become successful more and more, you're giving back more and more. You're kind of saying, okay, we're good and we're plowing it back in. And a lot of the things you're plowing it back into, I don't know why I'm holding a pen, those things are helping those people that are important to you in your life, in your community. The hospital's a great example, but all these other charities. One of the other funny stories I have about Bill is I came out of the gym and walking back to my car, and there's Bill loading up his Jeep literally to the ceiling with food. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's over at Aldi's
Right.
and just taking food. He said, oh, I come over here every whatever day it was, and I load up my truck and I take it. Like, there's got to be somebody else that could do that, but Bill does
Yeah,
that.
it's therapy. You know, you
Yeah.
have things in life that are therapy, and basically Aldi's gives a soup kitchen a pickup once a week. So whether I get it Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, so I said, you know, they were having trouble covering. I said, let's let me cover it. So if I can't cover it, I'll have one of my guys go down. But usually I'm in town, so I just take care of it.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
It's simple.
So rewarding. What do you do to fill up your cup?
What do I do
You
to
as a
fill my time?
person.
I'm really not a high maintenance person. I mean, you know what? It's like right now, this time of year, the kids are going to play basketball. So I try to make whatever games I can because when my kids are growing up, I was working hard and I missed some things I shouldn't make. So now I don't do that. And we'll go to Florida. We'll go to Florida January, February, March for 4 days, 3 nights. I told him I can't, or 4 nights, 3 days. I can't sit around for 2 weeks. After that third day, Karen and I are looking at each other saying it's time to go home. You know, so, and really it's just, you know, talking to people like yourself, it's just I'm not high maintenance. So it's just really simple.
The little
I enjoy
things.
people, the little things.
Yeah. Sunsets. And,
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you're down on the beach and you actually do give yourself a chance to relax, what do you like? You reading a book?
I'll read a book or I'll
Okay.
read the paper. Usually I read a book.
What kind of
What
stuff
kind
do
of
you-
books?
Yeah.
I might read a mystery or read something, you know, Jack Reacher or something like that.
Jack
And
Reacher.
Karen, the first time I started reading, she goes, I don't like you reading a book because when you read, you kind of zone out on me. So it was kind of funny.
And you're like, yep.
Yeah, that's the
exactly
point.
what I read.
Exactly. You know, it's like, you know, I do. I like to read because I don't get a chance to read at home because I'm too busy.
Mhm.
You know,
I went out and shoveled snow yesterday and I loved it.
I know I love
had
shoveling
like
snow.
an hour of shoveling snow, and
Yeah.
they're like, the neighbor's like, don't you have a snowblower? I'm like, yeah.
Exactly.
This is my gym today.
You got to
know?
do therapy.
It
You
was.
know,
It was
it's
great.
good for the mind and good for the body.
So when you have like a darker time in business or personally, whatever, like who do you lean on? Like where do you go? I think I've kind of asked you this. I don't know if I ever got a real answer from you.
I don't really have many dark times unless I get in my head. You know, probably 6 months ago I was in my head and I was thinking about calling my buddy Gary and I worked it out myself because I was thinking this is really stupid. You're being a baby. And it was over something stupid, you know, probably relational and it wasn't Karen's fault. It was just so to answer your question, if it's a business related thing that I can't work out, I'll talk to Ryan about it or Lindsay, or I'll call Mike May. You met my attorney, Mike May.
Mhm.
Mike's a good friend of mine. Or I'll call Gary Johnson. He's another good friend of mine. So and you just talk through things, you know, and then you think, man, that was simple, you know.
Mhm.
And I don't get a lot of them days. I really don't. I don't hardly have any of them. But once in a great while, I don't know if it's full moon or what it is, but you
Well,
know,
the
you have
thing
to, you
is,
have to
I
talk to
think
somebody about it.
you're the type of guy that if people have you in their life, you're that guy. But I always wonder who, like Tony
Yeah.
Robbins. Who does Tony Robbins go to?
Yeah,
when
right.
needs to
Who's he
get
talking
checked
I don't know.
out?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I got a couple good friends I can call and, you know, and work through it, whether it's a business problem or even if it's a personal thing,
Yeah.
you know,
I
and
think
I feel
that
better.
Maria and I should be on that list.
Yeah.
Well,
Call
you
me-
like
you
good
call me
therapy. Yeah,
anytime.
exactly.
I don't know what we'll say to cheer you up,
But I tell people you can either swim in your shit or you got to move on, you know, and I never look backwards. I remember years and years ago, and you're familiar with this. I went to Landmark down in Philadelphia. It was really a simple thing. Take the chair and put the chair back here. Move your life forward. You can't live in the past.
Mm-mm.
Childhoods or whatever they are. Yeah, you know, everybody didn't have a great childhood, but you move past it. It is what it is.
You have to use it.
You got to use it. You know,
Mhm.
there's stepping stones to get better places. Even my grandchildren will say, well, how do you deal with that, Poppy? I said, it's really simple. That person's a jerk, but the rest of them are really good people. You have to have some jerks in your life to make you realize, appreciate the good people. And that's what you have to do.
Mhm. I use a really bad, I don't know if it's a dad reference or whatever, but I've always said that an automobile is laid out really well. Just this giant windshield to see what's in front of you. And like 5% of the eyesight is the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
It's important to know that, but if you just stare at that mirror, you'll crash into something or you'll miss an opportunity.
Very good analogy.
Yeah, I just
Mhm.
thought that was thank you.
You know,
I
it
don't
is.
ever get
Very-
credit for that
Yeah.
one.
It is.
I didn't
No,
design it.
so
but
I don't
always
really
think
ever
that.
look back because I made I did a lot of great things, but made a lot of mistakes in my life when I was growing up. And you know what? My life is good.
Mhm.
You know, you live for the stupid things you did. That's what you do.
So what are you looking forward to?
What I'm looking forward to, everybody says, why don't you retire? You know, because I'm 66, I'll be 67 in January. I said, I'm having fun.
Mhm.
As long as it's fun, I'm going to do it. But the nice part about it, if I want to and I'll tell Ryan, I'll tell him I'm going to Florida. I'll be back in 4 days. Or if I want to go do something, I can do it. because I'm very fortunate. I have good people in our business, not just Ryan. We're very fortunate. We built a good team of people. Biggest thing I have to worry about now is we both fly, and sometimes we fly together. And a guy said to me 2 weeks ago, he goes, "What's your plan if something would happen to you and Ryan?" I said, I'm thinking, shit, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, you asked you that mid-flight?
But no, we fly helicopters, we fly planes. And he said, you got to think about that. So, it's kind of light bulb because I don't want to leave something you built to see it go to disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Because any business is only as good as the people in it. It really is.
Wow.
Yeah, we talk about that with a number of people here. We talk about it on the Blue Collar podcast, which is, you work to be real successful in a business, you get it to a point where you're obsolete, and then you hit the panic button because you're obsolete and you've made yourself sort of, if I'm gone, I'm gone. No one notices. And you start to question your value, but that's the way to hand a business off or to get it ready for a sale, to make it ready to run without you.
And good for me is I don't feel that way, because even Ryan said to me yesterday, he goes, let's go for rides. We went to Quarry to show me what he's doing. And I'm just watching, listening. And, because he needs me right now as much as I need him. Probably he doesn't need me as much because he does. He does a great job, and the people around him are doing a great job. So I don't feel that way, but I see a lot of people retire and they sit home. I'm thinking, how the hell do you do that? I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And Karen always says, she goes, I don't want you home that long.
So she knows you well.
Exactly.
I had this question written down. I don't know if you took a look at it yesterday, but what did your generation get right? And what's our generation today?
I think it's really simple. We were raised with respect. The first time I realized respect was gone 15 years ago, Karen and I were down the mall, and I think she was selling tables. She made these rock tables. And I was listening to these kids with the F word. And, when I swore when I was a kid, we looked around.
Yeah.
So respect, definitely, and loyalty and just ethics. And we live in a world right now where there's a lot of anger, which really bothers me because, I just see the other day in California, 3 kids got killed and 15 people got shot. Why? You know what? How can you just be that much anger? So it didn't happen in our times. We were raised at a great time. You got stopped by police, you were polite. Now people don't respect them. I feel bad for the way we're headed. AI technology scares the shit out of me because I think it's going to be a bad thing for this country. It's going to be good and bad. So yeah, I have a lot of concerns that we didn't have growing up. And I never remember my parents saying, I feel sorry for you kids. And I really do. I look at my grandson and say, and they'll survive it, but I feel sorry for what you guys are growing up to. Telephones have ruined half the country. Nobody plans nothing. Go into a restaurant sometime and watch a family. They don't talk. They're all looking at their phones.
Oh, yeah.
It's true.
So we didn't have that. You respect, and you know what? You're going to laugh at this, but 2 things I had to do in my house before I went to school. I had to make my bed, simple as that. And I had to wear, you're going to laugh at this, I had to wear a t-shirt every day underneath my shirt or I got grounded. But you know what? You didn't have that problem. When I graduated, I walked to the sliding door one day and Dad goes, where are you going? I'm thinking to myself, I don't need to tell you, I graduated. He goes, it's like this, Bill. You live in my house. As long as you live in my house, you're going to tell me. And I never said another word. 2 months later, I moved out because he was right. It was his house. But you don't get that today. And fortunately for my kids and my grandson, I'm proud of all of them.
You know what's interesting about this generation right now? I find this, if you don't ask them, they never volunteer.
No, I agree with that.
Like, hey, do you need help? If I said, hey, I need help with this, somebody will be right there. But when they look over and they see me working on something that they could help and make it easier for me or end it quicker,
Yep.
Unless I ask, it's not there. I'm not saying everybody in their 20s or whatever, but that's a trend that I've noticed.
Yeah.
Those of us who are older, like when you're done with your work, you're like, can I help you with yours? Let's go home earlier together, right?
I'll give you a little example of that. I watch it every night in the parking lot in Stonehenge. Someone will drop a cup or someone will drop a tissue. I always bend over and pick it up, and I'll watch on purpose. I'll watch to see how long it stays there, and I'll watch these guys walk by it. Garbage drives me crazy. People throw it out their window. We'll pick garbage on roads every now and then because I like where we live. The same thing you just said. And if you told them, I said, Bob, go over there and pick it up, they'll pick it up. But they won't pick it up. They'll walk by it all night. I'm thinking, shit. Just bend over and pick it up, right?
Yeah.
But they're raised different, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know what it is.
It's not my job.
It's not my job, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I do think that I don't want to sit here and pontificate about the younger generation because I feel like an old guy when I say that.
But it's really not the younger generation. People at work used to say, look at that kid. I said, no, look at his parents. You can't blame the child.
Yeah.
It starts at home. You have to have love and discipline. It's got to be a balance. If you don't have love and discipline, you have nothing.
That's what I was thinking about when you were talking about respect. I wonder if they learned how to have self-respect because I feel like everything kind of starts
You love
with
yourself, everything
yourself.
else works out.
Right.
It's the
So are
truth.
these kids not learning how to respect themselves and take care of themselves? Therefore, they're not going to extend.
I always tell my grandchildren, if I was your school superintendent, you wouldn't bring no telephones to school. Well, Poppy, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know what you're going to do, but you wouldn't bring them to school.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
And there's been a lot of, I've seen a lot of reports where they took the phones away from the kids for a week and just socialization and just and happiness levels went up. The first day or so was an adjustment and then boom, it
So
takes
it's a
over.
different world. We didn't have all that growing up. We grew up at a great time in America. And just like politics, and I'll just go on it briefly because I don't want to talk about a lot, is when I grew up, it didn't matter who was president of the United States, whether it's Democrat or Republican, they all worked across the aisle. Now it's a show.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for the people that they can't work this out. It's not that hard. But I don't see that getting better.
That's not going to be the end of this podcast. I have
Oh,
to.
boy.
No, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's just,
It's
Yeah.
a reality.
it's a reality. It shouldn't be about whether whether you're Republican, Democrat, do what's best for the people. You got to like to do what's best for the people.
And do you think that people, when they go into politics, they do feel like it's a sort of a higher calling, or do you think they're
I think
searching for
it's
more power?
I think it's searching for more power. I think it's an ego trip on some of them, and I don't think it's about the money because I think most of them go in there with some money in their pocket. But I think that they trade off, or they're used to the in-house fighting, and I really don't understand it, and I'm really disappointed in it.
I just heard a senator 2 days ago was talking, and he said one of the things they were banging on the Republicans for not getting some things done. And he said one of the things we're dealing with right now is a lot of the freshmen senators, and congressmen are complaining because they want to change the world, they want to do this, they want to help be part of writing new policy, and they get squashed because they get told like, no, that's not how you do it. We're not going to even address that. And so they're a year or so into their term, and they're saying, what the hell am I doing here? Why did I give up a pretty dang good life
Yeah,
to
to do
come
this
here? And now they want to leave.
exactly.
Yeah. And that's a problem with the system where you get the inspirational people, the people who have a long track record of making change and leaving a wake of better behind them. And then you get to that wall and it's just like, ugh.
It's pretty simple. In business, you hire people and they work for you because they like you, because they can work anywhere. So they really have to, it's got to be a gel situation. Whether Bob's hiring someone for this much money, well, he can go to work for that much money. Politics the same way. They need to run it like a business and get down back to basics. It's pretty simple. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not in my generation, but in my lifetime.
Is it social media? is that
Right.
is that the root of all the problem?
I
Yep.
don't know.
Well, I as much as I bang on that stuff, I love this kind of setting for people. It's like the first time I asked you to do this with
Mhm.
me 5 years ago was like, I know people would love to hear a conversation with you. They'll never have a chance to go one on one, but hopefully this is an extension of that. Question for you, going back to some of the topics we talked about. When you are asked all these things and get involved, whatever, and Maria was like, how do you vet and decide, like, when should people say no? When
When
do
should people say no? You have to believe in it, though. I think really have to be passionate about what you're doing. Well, my good friend Gary, probably the first thing I got involved in was Marley's Mission. I believed in what they were doing. His kids are getting abused. I believed in that. The only thing I did believe is we got to put them back in that atmosphere, which breaks my heart. And then the soup kitchen, I totally believed in that. They came to me and said, Bill, can you raise money to buy this building? Well, number one, we paid too much money for the building, but I had to put all that aside. Sometimes you have to put your personal feelings aside. And I believed in that. The hospital, I haven't figured that one out yet, but it was the right thing to do. And just the little things we do. I mean, we paid for funerals. We've done different things. It's the right thing to do because a person was a good person and they didn't have what I have. I'm blessed. So to answer your question, it's a hard question to answer because you got to vet it right here quickly. And the other thing I do is I'll think about something for a day or two, and my thoughts are always different 24 hours or 48 hours. No different as buying a car. If you go out today, you want to buy it, you're going to buy it. If you wait 48 hours, you're going to have a whole different mindset. That was hard when I was younger, but now it's not hard no more.
I'll see it. I know you both have seen this. It's everywhere you go. There's a business that comes out of the gates and it gets on its legs and it's going, and then it just sort of fizzles, is fading away. And then another business, maybe a competitor, will come in, or just a different person, but somebody with a pure entrepreneurial kind of knows how to run a business, comes in, buys that business out, takes it over, and just boom, just explodes in a good way. Why is that?
Well,
Right?
they
Is
might
it
have a better
is
business
it
mind, or they might be more dedicated to what they're doing, and you got to work it. There's no gifts from God. You have to work it. Like I said, used to be, I think I was lucky. It's not luck. You work. I don't use that terminology anymore. You have to work it. You got to pay attention. You got to watch your people. You got to make sure that they're happy. And we all have bad days. If I have a bad day, I can make everybody have a bad day. So I don't have bad days. I just don't. I make sure that I'm even every day because they're watching how I think too. And some of the things you talked about today, they'll ask me, Bill, what do you think? And I got to be careful how I judge that because I can be brutal sometimes, brutally honest.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, Bob, I think you got to know your market, you got to know your people, you got to take care of your customers, you got to be loyal to your customers. We have customers all over the country, and if you called our salespeople, just you want to buy a load of stone, first thing we're going to do is see where you are, and we're going to tell you we can't sell to you because we're doing business with this person. A lot of people don't do that. I was born too loyal. Some days it hurts me,
Mm.
but there's not a lot of loyalty today. So we're really, and I think that's why our business survives as good as it does. And we watch it. We build a nice ass nest egg and we protect that nest egg because you have to. You got to pay attention.
Yeah. I agree with you. I've had some people throughout my time say it's not personal, it's just business. I don't agree with that at all.
I
I
don't
feel
either. I
No,
don't
yeah.
either.
I mean, we live in a pretty small area, and from Scranton all the way up to Binghamton, it's pretty rural.
yeah,
And even if you're in Scranton, like you're going to see, out in Scranton and I see people that I know. I don't want to duck down an aisle because there's a guy that I screwed over in business or
that's
something,
exactly
or a
right.
client or something like that. I want
Biggest
to be
thing we
proud of them.
watch very closely is we do a lot of business with a lot of vendors. It could be Kenworth, Peterbilt, it could be Hail Trailer. And guys come in and say, well, I know you're buying this and this, new sales guys. I said, we have a good relationship. Pricing is good. If they mess up, I promise you, I'll call you if the service is bad. To me, it's not about the price, it's about the service.
Yeah.
And you want the service, you want it pretty quickly. So that's what we
You
watch.
have to depend on it.
Yeah. And you're loyal. You're loyal to them and until they make a mistake, and then you got to either call them out on it. And I had a guy one time, and we're really, really good friends. And I called him out and I said, you really made a big, major mistake. He sent me all these letters, said, don't send me no more letters. I'm okay. I still like you, but don't do that again. You know.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting that when I look at the hospital project and consider the variety of people that you have involved in that now, totally different personalities, different business lines, mostly all medical related, and you're getting large hospital systems that never would even be in the same room with each other now being under the same roof and working to help provide a better service. That's got to be a heavy lift.
well, it is, but I think I told you 5 years ago in the stone business, I can call one of my allies today and say, Tom, I need these two pallets. Can we do a little trade off? Or Mountain Energy in the SGF in the water business. We're always good friends. Competition is a terrific thing. Just try to do it better than they do or do what they're doing. Same thing with the hospital. One thing I learned about the medical business, they always worry about what you're doing. I said, don't worry about what you do. You take care of what you're doing. We're going to make sure we complement what you're doing. So it's not a competitor, it's a complement to what you're doing. So that's been a challenge, but I got to say it is getting better. But
Hmm.
that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
When you
Right.
take on a brand new project like that, there has to be a learning curve. How do you get started learning? Where do you learn from? And as a follow up, are there principles that apply across the board no matter what?
Yeah, I think there's principles. I mean, fortunately for me, I had a daughter that was a PA for Geisinger for 13 years. So the first thing Lindsay said is, why'd you do that? I said, well, you were getting burned out of what you're doing. So now we got a new position for you. So she's kind of taught me, and I've learned a lot about it. And a lot of it all comes back to personalities, principles. The problem with the healthcare system is it's another antiquated system. It's run by the Department of Health. Perfect example. We had talked to a company about our operating rooms upstairs. There's three of them, beautiful rooms. They're probably they're twice the size of this. One guy said, well, under new regs, they're not big enough. I said, what do you mean? They did this for years. My kids were born here. You're going to tell me they're not big enough? So he goes, well, you need to tackle the Department of Health system. I said, well, I can do that. It's a common sense element. You learn, you listen. But the biggest thing is you try to make people work together, and that's hard sometimes because, it's a lot of personalities in that room and they're always worried about, well, who are you bringing in? I'll bring somebody that's going to compliment. I'm not going to bring them in if they're going to compete with each other because you're both going to be out of business. No different than EMS. They're all going to be out of business if you don't get it right. So you learn every day and you listen, you pay attention, but it all comes down to personalities. This person might be a Debbie Downer, and the next person, well, let's go ahead and do that. So you learn a lot, and you try to weed between it. But I don't know if I answered your question the right way, but it's a work in progress every day. And for me, it's our politicians. Lisa Baker's been terrific. Tina Pickett. We just got a phone call the other day, 2 weeks ago, from Dan Muser. We got approved for $2,346,000. That's beautiful. And the first thing I asked me, how can I spend it? I don't want to spend someone's money, whether it's Stonehouse's money or your money. I want to make sure we do the right thing. Well, I'll get back to you, Bill. I said, it's very important to get back to me. So our goal is to have an emergency room and a micro hospital. That's our goal. If we can do that, I'll be a happy guy. But we got to bring the players in the room. And, sometimes you don't have just Guthrie here now. I have to have the right center with you. I might need to bring another person. So that's working, but it didn't work good at first. One day I told him, I said, you got to quit asking me why they're competing with you. They're not competing with you. Don't worry about your competition. You do it better than they do. That's all you got to worry about.
So do you sell the vision? Is that how you get a lot of people on board?
You try to sell the vision. You always get someone that's not going to believe in the vision, but they usually come around if they're doing things for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But the healthcare business is a whole different business. It's another train wreck. I told Bob this story. 3 years ago, I had a hernia operation. We're self-insured. So we called Guy Singer. I think it was 16 grand. No, I'm sorry. Guy Singer was 60 grand with a 40% discount was 42,000. Make a long story short, I went to Lehigh and Allentown because I was paying the bill, $7,000. So the average person doesn't understand healthcare is just a total train wreck. So we're constantly working on our employees to educate them, and the hospital might help us do that because, we can get them better care, maybe at a better price, because we're not going to have healthcare if we don't do that.
Yeah, I think people have to be their own advocates these days, and they're not.
And we share costs
Taking
with
the
them. Like
effort.
we have meetings now because our enrollment's January 1st. I said, share all the costs. Make sure they know what this is costing them because it's very important. It's not a credit card we're giving you to go spend. Because someday, most of my competitors say, nobody does what you do. I said, well, I don't really care what they do. I want to make sure I'm giving them the best options, but they got to help me with it.
Yeah.
So I find it interesting that as you're talking, I'm thinking about your business, the various businesses you're involved in, and the people that are surrounding you in key roles at those locations. And I think one thing I can find in common, and Maria, I think your biggest challenge is you've been solo and that's a totally different thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're working with teams of people and you have people that are pissy and miserable, or you have people that are they come in and they assume they're going to have a good day until it might go bad. I think that the optimistic, entrepreneurial, business minded people are who we've surrounded ourselves with. I think that the reason there's an engine in their mind that keeps them positive, they wake up positive and they expect the best. And then their mindset and their actions, little habits that they do, just keeps them grinding toward that direction. And then what they're doing is actually, as you said, getting the work done. They're treating the customer, the clients the way they should be. They're providing, and they know in their mind, like, we're firing on all cylinders, or we're doing a really good job. And the business is moving forward and it's bringing everybody else with them. How do you find those people? Are they,
It's a people business. I mean, it really is. It's very tough. Sometimes you got to let people go. We've done that before. And the good people, if you can groom them, they're going to be with you forever. But they got to believe in the vision, and we have to listen to them. That's one thing my dad never would have done at his age. You're not going to listen to me. But at my age, you have to listen because they have good ideas. If it makes sense, we got to try it. And you just got to be enthused every day. And you can't let one little thing set you off. If I did that, I tell people, I said, go outside and take a walk if it bothers you. Think about this because you can't do that. I watched someone the other night. They got upset about something down the lights. Well, this girl didn't come in, so I'm just going to not put her in this job tonight. So you got 30 more days to think about that problem. I said, everybody's not like you. And that's how I look at it. Because, I deal with variables every day. Yes, it does bother me. I'm thinking, and I told you, it's like raising kids. You did this right. You did this right. Yes, you did this wrong. Capitalize on the positive things because the negative things will tear you up.
They will. Our brains are wired to see negatives as 9 times more powerful than
Yeah.
positive things. So we have to take a conscious effort to look at the positives, but that can become a habit, a thought habit, which will change the state of how you're showing up, which
Exactly.
you've done. Have you always been a good judge of character, or do you think that was a
I
learned
made some bad
thing?
decisions. You can't hire. One thing you learn: you can't hire a person because you're a friend. You got to make sure it's for all. Everything you do has got to be for the right reasons. Yeah, I've made some mistakes, and my son Ryan will tell me about it too, or even Lindsay will. So it's kind of funny, but yeah, you do. I mean, I have a target on a guy right now, and I'm nice about it, I'll probably end up laying him off because he didn't do what he was supposed to do, and he worked for me before, and I feel bad about it, but it's not working out. And my heart got in the way. When your heart gets in the way,
Mhm.
you could have a problem.
Because you could see potential in people, and it's that balance between reality and potential.
Well,
And
Maria, there's not good in everybody, and I want to think there is, but there's some people
Yeah.
there's not.
Mhm.
And that's hard, but you know what? You're only as good as your business. I mean, we're very fortunate. We just have a lot of good people. COVID didn't hurt us. We lost a couple of people during COVID, but we've been very fortunate. We're blessed.
I have said this before. People tend to surprise me. When they surprise me, it's usually to the downside because I put them up here
Right.
until they give me a reason to not
Yep.
enjoy them. But I've heard this statement many times from very good entrepreneurial people. When it comes to firing someone, when it's not a good fit, fire quickly, hire slowly, and then fire quickly. The perspective that they say is that if it's not the right person, they're not a fit for your company, let them go, and you're doing them a favor because they're meant to be somewhere else and they'll probably excel somewhere else. It's just not here. And I thought, that's like, I don't know if I agree with that. And then I thought about my brother and I working with my dad in the construction business when I was right out of school. That's what I wanted to do, build the family business. And I realized I'm 6 years younger than my brother, although I don't look it anymore. I think he's using something, but anyway,
That's
he
funny.
looks great, and but his, like, I realized I was always going to be his little brother and an employee only, which was fine. But for me, I wanted more risk. I just had that appetite for it, and I didn't think I was ever going to get a chance to fly on my own or whatever.
Mhm.
So it was one of the most difficult moments of my life, telling my dad and my brother, I'm not going to work alongside you guys. That's very emotional for all of us. And then when I look at where my brother has taken the business, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Great. He's a great name for himself, doing wonderful work. And then I think we've done a good job with Stonehouse. So it was right. So there's
Exactly.
truth to that
There is
statement.
truth.
It just hurts at first.
yeah. I'm a small business, but I've encountered that too. And I had a coach tell me that too. By
Yeah.
keeping an employee longer than they're meant to stay,
Mm.
you're holding them back from where they're meant to be. So
I had a really good guy working for me. He was a good operator, really good operator, but he was very moody. Moody. You might get four bad days, one good day. Still, he did his job, but he was just miserable. And I told him one day, I said, he said, Bill, I'm going to leave. I said, you probably need to because I want to see you happy. You're getting too old not to be happy, and you're definitely not happy working for me. Go find out what makes you happy. Now, do I think he'll be happy? I don't think so. Some people just have that mood. But you're right. I wasn't doing him no favor of myself because I was also talking to my customers. I said, well, am I getting A guy today or B? I said, I really don't know. And that was bothering me because my guy's got to shine.
Mhm.
We all
Mhm.
got to shine. Don't bring your problems to work. I mean, people do. I always tell them, leave at the bottom of the driveway, pick them up on the way back out.
yeah, because they're representing your name,
Exactly.
your reputation,
Yeah,
your integrity when they are out on the
exactly.
job. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
I think a little bit of a different topic, but when we were talking earlier about how things might have to change for the better in our area and just in general. And when it comes to running your own business or more of a community minded project, right? Times change. The 80s, I love the 80s. Man, I love the 80s.
No, you're right, though.
But the 90s weren't bad. They were just different. I like those too. And each decade is a little bit different, has its own characteristic, but it doesn't mean that change is horrible. You can make some bad changes, no doubt, but change is inevitable. And I think when you sit there and say, I'm going to still run my business, it's been clicking, and I'm just going to now maybe leverage and keep doing what I'm doing, rinse, lather, repeat, and it's not the same. And if you don't recognize that, you're destined to just run into a wall. And I worry about that, whether it's people running their own businesses today, not realizing that interest rates will change, inflation is doing this, and just all of a sudden what if we have a recession or something like that? I'm not saying we have a recession.
Right. No, I understand.
Those things have happened. We've
Yeah.
had, even if it's only a 1 year thing, and when I first got in the business, we had 2000 to 2002, and it was 3 years of back to back negative returns in the market. Not my favorite time. I was a couple years in the business, and those were hard conversations, but that's inevitable. That cycle just keeps riding back and forth. And I think people need to be prepared. So I go back to what I wrote down on that first page. I manage my money right. Preparing for those things is important, but not just the money side, just being willing, like you said with Ryan on the car wash, 3 bays versus 2 bays, et cetera. You sat back and he is right. And I don't know how you
That's
came to
right.
that conclusion, but
Exactly.
he won that debate.
Yep.
And kudos to him for standing up and saying, no, dad.
Yeah.
And kudos for you to saying, you know what, you're right. Even though I did this before, long before you were here, this is a new thing. And you
Well, you're
did your
right.
homework.
It's an ever-changing environment, so you gotta listen, you gotta pay attention, and you gotta rely on your people. You really, because you're gonna hear a lot of good things, and you might hear some bad things, but you're no bit. I tell people this all the time. I said, "You can be in business, but you have to have good people or work yourself." I used to be a really proponent of, "Hell with it, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. It's easier than asking somebody." I don't do that as much anymore. I mean, I work hard, but you know what? I'm not helping them if I just do it myself. Yeah, it's business is different though. Businesses, you got to, because we're in a different world today. I mean, even quick story, the festival lights. I always ask them as we get involved in it, what are the credit cards running? We're running 20% credit cards. Last year was 9%.
Wow.
That scares me because we're living in an environment right now, a tough time. Go to the grocery store, you see it. I mean, I don't go to the grocery store a lot, but I'm always amazed at what the prices are. So I feel bad for people when they're putting that kind of money on their credit cards. It really bothers me. And maybe because I'm a cash guy, I don't use a
Mhm.
credit card.
Yeah. Well, I love when I go to the store and I hand it like a 20 and the young kid behind the thing's like, well, no, just push the 20 into the
Yeah, right.
slot."
This is how it works.
We don't handle that,
Yeah.
It's a different world. But yeah, there's pros and cons to that. But
Yep.
Don't expect pennies back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
pennies are
yeah,
gone.
there
And
you
that
go.
was a good move. If it cost us that kind of money, I think it was a good move. It should
Yeah.
have been made a long time ago.
Yeah.
But then they're already, just because the news media, they're already downplaying, well, it's going to cost these businesses this much money. Just suck it up. You know what? Round up or round down. It
Yeah.
is what it is.
Yeah.
We gotta
There's
deal
always
with
a
it.
cost to doing business.
There's a cost of doing business.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. So last big question. We're kind of close to about an hour. I know you've got a million things to do. Your legacy, Bill Ruark legacy and the family and everything. So I know you've given thoughts to this because I know you've talked about it here. And I know outside of this conversation, you've put some things in motion. And like what, I don't want to say like what's on your tombstone someday. And nobody likes to be asked that question, right? But what do you want to be known for, remembered? And what's your legacy?
Well, I think
You
that's
still got a lot of years to
I know
keep
that's a
building.
tough question. Though, and I think about that a little bit. Number one, there won't be no tombstone, Bob. I just want to get that clear.
Oh, okay.
I told my kids already, you're going to cremate me, you throw me in the lake when I'm done. Don't have a viewing, don't have a funeral, have a memorial maybe a month later. That's exactly what I told them. Legacy, I just want to, again, I don't need recognition. I just want to see people do the right things for the right reason. Quick story, I used to still do it, soup kitchen, and I'm not going to name these firms, but they wanted to take pictures when they were helping at the soup kitchen. They want to take pictures inside. I'm thinking, you don't need pictures. If you're taking pictures because you need recognition, you shouldn't be here. And I told them that. Sometimes you got to be the bad guy, but I guess my legacy wants to be just treat people good. If you're fortunate enough to have something, pass it down. And fortunate for us, we set up a Ruark Foundation, which is doing very well thanks to people like Stonehouse and some of the other people I invest with. So my goal is to take that on and hope the kids will do it and the grandchildren will do it. So you got to get the mindset down to the next generation. I don't want people to say, well, yeah, he was a great worker or he was really smart. Take care of the community you were raised in. You don't have to you can't be everything to everybody, but do things for the right reasons. And I think a lot of people sort that. I don't sort out. I sort out real quick. It's really simple.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. You're not an on the
I don't
fence
run.
kind of guy.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not on the fence. You got to make that decision fast.
You're tall enough. You just walk over the fence. You just got to decide which side you want to be on. That's great. I mean, I think that's a very important point. You feel very comfortable and confident in your mindset today. And now it's just a question of how do I transfer that to my
Right.
kids? Sounds like you already have into my grandkids.
And it's not
so.
easy. I mean, the first time I did estate planning, I sat down and said, man, this is painful. Because it's not easy. You pay taxes all your life. Then if you die, you got to pay 55%. I'm thinking, well, we got to protect some of this stuff.
Mhm.
So, and I don't need to tell you that. It's hard work.
Yeah. And nobody likes talking about like.
No,
what
you
I'm
have to,
on.
though.
Yeah.
I couldn't have that conversation with my dad. Hell no, you want my money. I don't want your money, but we built this
Right.
business together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of, and you know this, right? That there's a lot of estate planning that could go so much more smoothly. And it's usually if the older generation was willing to have that conversation, but so often, like your
They're not.
dad, right? They're
They're not.
not. And then this happens.
Yeah.
And it without that planned out. But it initially, I think I've seen it many times where that generation who you're talking about planning for their death feel like you're trying to get control of my money
Exactly.
now, take it out of my pocket.
Right.
And a lot of times they're older and they're feeling more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. Most cases the kids are coming at it from a completely different side
Right.
saying, we just want to make sure all that stuff you worked your tail off for is passed through our kids.
Probably about a month ago, I had a good friend call me, younger. He's a younger guy. And he said, I'm really having a problem with my grandpa on this. I said, well, I'm not a financial planner. I'm not an attorney, but here's what you need to do. Go talk to these guys, because if not, this is what it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
This guy was 83 and a really, really, really good friend of mine. And he even called me a couple weeks later and he goes, I heard you gave him some advice. I said, well, did it work out good for you? He goes, yeah, I think I'm okay. But I said, if you don't get it managed, you're going to hurt them. You're going to hurt them. You know?
And that's not what he wants.
No.
Right? Yeah.
No.
But it's tough though.
He said, well, I might live till I'm 90. I said, I hope you do live till you're 90, but you better have a plan right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
Yep.
And you have to. You know, if you care about your family or care about what you build, you have to do it.
Keep working out and taking supplements. I think you'll live well past 90.
Yeah, right.
I won't talk about the Boston cream donut I had before I got
Please don't.
Yeah, right.
I'm starving.
Bill, thank you so much for doing this. Did we miss any questions, any hot topics that we wanted to dig into?
I'm thinking if you could give business owners one piece of advice for themselves to be successful, what would it be?
You got to be nervous every day, but you can't let it rule you. Someone said that to me a while ago. How do you do it? I said, I'm nervous every day. I don't let it. It doesn't affect, well, it does affect my sleep, I guess, like subconsciously. But you got to believe what you're doing. You got to be passionate about what you're doing, and you got to work hard. I see a lot of people go in business. They get a little successful, and then you can't find them. They forgot where they came from. You can never forget where you came from. You know, where you might as well sell your business or have your, sell your employees, or but you really get passion. I tell people this all the time. You can make a living anywhere. You have to have passion. Passion is a big part of business today, as far as I'm concerned. You know, and you got to be nervous. I mean, it takes a lot of nerve to win business. I just told that guy that last weekend I was talking to about buying a truck. I said, well, buddy, he goes, well, he goes, I just want to own a business. I said, well, maybe go look at something else. You know, we always wanted to do this. I said, I'm not going to talk you in or out. I'm just talking realist to you. And you got to work hard and you got to save your money. And that's what we did. I had a lot of bad times where I was thinking, how the hell am I going to make this payroll? Lines of credit, I still have lines of credit, but I haven't used them in 15 years, which is great. But I'm nervous every day. You know, not nervous to the point where it affects my business, but I worry. I worry about it.
Well, you're prepared.
You got to be prepared.
Yeah.
Sage advice.
Sage
Yeah.
advice.
You're starting to learn. You're starting to figure this out.
I know, right? Took a lot of years though, I'll tell you.
Well, I've just my personal interaction. I just enjoy. I don't know why I can't talk today, but I enjoy that positive, optimistic attitude that you always bring. There's a million reasons that we can get dragged down, and you seem to have a steady engine in your mind, keep pushing you forward. And I think it rubs off on certainly us, and been involved with you on boards, and I enjoy all the input and interaction. So, in fact, I tell a lot of the folks that work in Stonehouse, when you're out there volunteering your time, because we try to do a lot of that, as I know you guys both do, get in something you're passionate about. And what you'll find is that the people around that board typically are all there for the right reasons, and you feed off each other.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So,
But you're right. When you get a board, and again, I'm not going to mention any. Sometimes they put board members on for the wrong reasons. They want money from them. I'd rather have good ideas from them.
yeah.
You know, and
Right
just
on.
like before I got down here, I came out of that meeting pumped up. By the time I got to your building, I was okay. Because I'm thinking, this isn't hard. I mean, it's just, I'm a realist and a common sense guy. You can work this out. You just got to talk to people and work it out.
Everything is figure outable.
It is figure
Outable.
Yeah.
It's a great, you're right though. It is.
It
You
is.
I
just
love
gotta,
that.
you got to be optimistic. You got to think about it. And sometimes you're not going to believe in everything you do, but do it for the right reasons.
Reverse engineer it. I feel like you've been doing that your whole life.
Reverse engineer. I got to remember that one too.
Yeah. Reverse engineer or forgettable. Figure outable.
Figure outable.
Right.
All right. Well, Bill, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Maria, thank you
Yes,
very much.
thank
Thank
you.
you very much. I enjoyed it.
This has
Appreciate
been
Here,
great.
appreciate it,
Thank
man.
Good deal.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Beyond the Bottom Line. Thank you for listening. If this conversation sparked something for you, please let us know. Follow, share, or leave a review. It helps us keep having the conversations we love that you love to listen to. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more real talk from real leaders. Until then, here's to feeling successful beyond the bottom line.